Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Coffee Chat. I'm your host, Wayne Jacobsen, and today I'm joined by Mark Morehouse. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you.
And of course, for anyone that has been listening to NAC TV or reading the banner of the late within the last month or two, you'll know that Mark was for quite some time the acting staff sergeant here in Neepawa and is just recently retired. So we're just catching up, Mark. Maybe if you don't mind, just let us know the journey.
The journey started back in 1986. Excuse me. I was at a New Brunswick boy, and joined at Fredericton, New Brunswick, and went to depot in July of 86. And my first posting was Montreal, Quebec, and I stayed there for 2 weeks because they said you don't speak French. So pick anywhere in Canada you want to go. So I did. I picked the Maritimes and got Toronto.
Well, hey, I know that story.
So I was in Toronto for 11 years, worked in a couple of sections there, and lived in Peterborough. Traveled back and forth an hour and a half to work each day, or an hour and a half one way, I should say. And with traffic, it was 3 hours one way to work. And I did that for 10 years, yeah. So when I left there, I came out to Carberry in 97, and was in Carberry from 97 to 2005. And I waited before I went for any promotions till my kids were out of school, and I didn't want to move them. The year we moved out here, my oldest was going in grade 8, youngest in grade 5, and it was one of those years where if I didn't move when I did, I probably wouldn't have moved, just because of the friendships the kids had and the schooling. And we noticed in our pictures of our oldest at school pictures, we had the old ones and new ones, and had the kind of like the frown on his face in the first year. But after that, he was into sports. Both boys were into sports and everything else, so it worked out very, very well. And then from there, I went to Amaranth, promoted to Amaranth as a corporal up there. Was there for 3 years, and the only place I got shot at twice. And then from there, I went to Puckatawagan, promoted there as a sergeant, Puckatawagan in 2008. And from that, I was there from 2008 to 2010, and then came to Stonewall from June of 2010 to 2012, July 1st, basically 2012, which I came to Neepawa, where I said that's where I wanted to end up. And as you know, you were the sergeant when I was in Carberry in Neepawa, and it was such a great place, and we were amalgamated back and forth, so with Carberry, Neepawa, and Gladstone, and loved the area. Plus my wife, she worked with, she was resource coordinator for home care, and she worked in the health unit out of Neepawa, so she was there for about 23 years. So this was going to be home, Neepawa. And of course, as our kids, I was there for 12 years, or 10 years, I should say, here in Neepawa. And our kids married girls from Brandon and grandkids, and we're in there every weekend. And so we thought, we're traveling back and forth, which wasn't that far away, but Grandma said it'd be nice to be there with grandkids.
To your grandchildren,
yeah. So now we're quite happy living in Brandon. We moved to Brandon in February of this year, and grandkids come over and sleepovers and suppers, and of course with the kids too. Our kids.
And I'm sure it's like my place. When they leave, it looks like a cyclone has gone through.
Yeah. We sit back and have a rest after that.
Yeah. After you've cleaned up.
After we cleaned up.
Yeah.
Because the grandkids are 4, 2.5, and 2. So
beautiful.
So it's great to be around, and if they need an extra hand or anything like that, we're there for them. Yeah.
So that sounds like quite a fulfilling career. Any particular highlight of your 39?
36.
36 years that really sticks out for you along the journey?
Yeah, worked the Carla Homolka, Paul Bernardo cases, worked that in Ontario. The Big Amish case here in Manitoba.
Of course, yes.
And some of the Hells Angels Rock Machine, worked those cases down in Ontario as well. So they do stick out. One of the big ones too is the bad accident we had here in Highway 16 when they were building the highway.
Yes. That would have been in 95 or 96.
Yeah.
Somewhere right in there, right?
Yeah. So that was a pretty bad one there. But yeah, I've always loved my job, and the people made it that way. And I always like to talk to people or get out and see people and councils and chiefs when I was working on reserves. But I always found you give back to the community that's given to you, and getting involved in the community as well. That was always my big component, is get involved wherever you go, and it makes life a lot easier.
There's certainly been a good number of people say to me how much you and your family will be missed from the community. Because, and again, I think it's important as a police officer that you be approachable, and you were certainly that to anyone within the community.
Yeah, and I noticed that when I passed in my work phone.
All your contacts gone?
Well, no, I got my contacts, but all the numbers, it stopped ringing. But that was me. It's not maybe for everybody, but that's the way I put myself out there for the people. And lots of times I got called when I wasn't working, and I would deal with the call, getting a hold of the members, or if I could deal with it myself over the phone, I'd do that. Some people do that, some people don't, and that's up to them, but that was my choice, and I felt comfortable doing that, and I just wanted the people to be able to be served by us.
And of course, and I'm not sure exactly how long, but for a few years, a number of years, you were the acting staff sergeant here in Neepawa. 2, 3, 4 years?
6 years.
6 years.
6 years, yeah.
And I mean, as a former member, I mean, I'm certainly aware of how the RCMP operates, but at some point in time, was there not ever the conversation, I've been doing the job for 2 years, why don't you just make me the staff sergeant?
Yeah, apparently they can't do that anymore. So. And then there's people that's been in the north that is due out and has already been a staff sergeant, and they have to find places for them. And
yeah.
So I have no regrets that way. I was here, I led the team for 6 years and didn't hear any faults about it or anything like that. And they gave me some...
No one mutinied?
No one mutinied. No, they gave me some awards for that too, and gifts for the job that I've done, which I appreciate. And the big thing is too, they showed good support for not only me, but my family. And that you can't take away.
Right, yeah. And let's face it, sometimes we as police officers have a very difficult job to do, but you're still a member of the community. You want to feel welcomed and part of it.
Yeah, and I got involved right away. Matter of fact, I was still in Stonewall when I was on the golf board here in Neepawa, and I would travel down on the meeting nights and go to the meeting and back to work the next day. So, and I ended up... Steve Gowdy was the one that was on the board, and I blamed Steve for some things because one thing, once he was on another board and leaving, he'd approach me. So I ended up
natural successor?
Yeah, so I ended up being on the Legion board and then the Beautiful Plains Community Foundation board, and which I didn't mind. I really enjoyed every board that I was on, and hopefully that I helped out with the board and for their perspective. But you get to meet a lot of people, and knowing what the boards are about, and sometimes you look at something and say, well, why can't they just do that? Until you're on something and you realize
that politics, it has such a, what's the right term? I won't say negative connotation, but it does have a somewhat. But politics is at whatever level of governance.
Yes.
It plays a role. You've got to toe the line to make things happen. Yeah,
and I'm proud to say that we've done some good work on any boards that I've been on, and happy to be there.
So I know I was kidding you on the golf course about this, but as you've mentioned, you decide to make the move to Brandon, and then you take a job back in Neepawa. What's that all about? Well,
Neepawa is like a home to me too, and been treated very, very well by all the citizens of Neepawa. Out of work and in work, and I thought I wanted to give something back. Now, I don't know if a bylaw officer is giving something back or not, but my approach is to talk to the people first, and like if it's property cleanup or moving vehicles off the road or anything like that, talk to them first and see how that works, and before you have to go the other route. And so far, knock on wood, it's been good.
And I'm sure you experienced the same thing in policing as I did, that probably the most significant thing is good communication.
Communication.
No matter what situation you're going into.
That's right. Communication's a big thing, and that's always been. My mom said it's always a poor set of legs that stands there and a poor mouth that doesn't talk that from getting beat up. So I kind of learned early.
Oh, so that's why you became a Mountie, so you
Yeah.
could learn how to protect yourself.
Well,
right?
exactly.
So what is a bylaw officer?
Well, a bylaw officer, the town's never had one before, and they've talked to me about it before I retired. If they were thinking about it at the time, and if I'd be interested. And the more I thought about it, I thought, yeah, I would be. And so I had approached them before I retired and said, yeah, I'd be interested. And of course, they thought the move to Brandon, it was out of the question.
Mm-hmm.
And then I said, no, I still want to do it. So that I did, but the bylaw officer is enforcing the town bylaws, basically is what it is. And from anything from, not the building codes, because we have a building inspector that does that. And then the fire chief does inspections of properties and to see if they're up to snuff and codes that way as well. But I'm like a cleanup guy, clean.
You're in the fourth batting position?
I'm in the fourth batting position, yeah. So you go and make sure that things are done properly, or you follow through with like I say, parking, campers on the streets, derelict vehicles in yards that's been there for a while, grass not mowed, washers, dryers, couches out on your lawns and stuff like that.
So there are bylaws that
there are
govern
bylaws
that.
for all that. Parking bylaws as well. There's some parking bylaws. Some of it would pertain to the RCMP still, but what I can enforce, I'll enforce, and I'm working with the RCMP as well as see, if there's anything there that I can do, take off their hands, because I know they're busy too. Sometimes they're short, and if there's something that I can do that falls within the realm of the town, then I'm there to help out as well.
So would that include things like barking dogs or loud parties at night?
Yeah, it can include that. It can include that. Barking dogs is one of the things. They do have an animal control officer that would take a dog away or anything, so I won't get bit.
Good point.
But no, I would go and talk to people too about their barking dogs and the noise. And some people think that the noise bylaw is only from after 11 o'clock or 10 o'clock at night, I should say. It's not 11, it's 10 at night. No, it can continue through the whole day if you got a dog that's out there barking all the time, and it does disturb neighbors. So I follow up on that and go from there. We haven't had to levy any fines as of yet, but not saying that we won't.
Yeah.
And the thing is with the properties and moving of anything that has to be moved from any properties, if the people are not paying for it, then it's just added onto their tax bill.
Right. Then is obviously you got to pay your taxes, or sooner or later
That's right.
there'll be a civil action taken. I
Yeah,
assume.
lien against it and everything
Yeah.
else. So
Yeah. So would it include? And I know this topic has come up in general conversation over the years with the occupants of whether it's a single family residence or some of the apartments. Is that part of your purview? Or?
It's more or less that would be with the fire part and the building inspector, basically, that would go in, especially if you're trying to renovate the house to make more bedrooms or anything like that, and especially if it hasn't got the egress windows for the basement, if you're building something down there, safety reasons.
Right.
And I mean, we just had a big fire here on Friday, and thank God nothing happened, but there was a few bedrooms in that place too, I was told.
So was it demolished, or?
It's pretty well demolished.
Yeah, won't be inhabitable.
No, I was told that the basement though is in good shape for the walls and stuff like that, so that's a good thing if somebody wanted to rebuild on that property. But I haven't heard anything more what's going on with it right now. Of course, it's at the early stage.
Yeah. So you mentioned you golf in Brandon Wednesday mornings.
Golf in Brandon Wednesday mornings, and matter of fact, I even threw my name in for a spare out here on Thursdays.
Well, I was going to ask you that because you have golf men's night Thursdays for a number of years.
Yeah.
So you're going to sort of hang on to that.
Yeah, and I can juggle my shifts around too. So it's so instead of Monday and Tuesdays, I might work a Monday and a Thursday, and then that way, right after work, I can go golf.
Well, you're going to come out, I won't say all the way out here because it's not really that far.
No.
But you might as well maximize the trips to Neepawa there.
Yeah. So and it's a great golf course here. That's the thing. It's a beautiful golf course. So it's hard to find another one like it when you've golfed it. As long as I've golfed it anyway, I've seen around. And again, I like the people. I like the people here. And of course, I like the people in Brandon too. I met a lot of people in Brandon on my golf day that knows people from Neepawa or Carberry where I've been stationed before. And it makes it easier for me to get to know people and knowing that there's something in common.
So if I may ask, now you officially retired July 1st?
Oh, officially retired August 3rd.
August 3rd, but your last work day was like in March or something like that.
May the 6th was my last work day.
Of course, that's the accumulation of holidays and
that's right.
that type of thing.
Yeah.
So are you the typical retiree, traveled a bit when you first became free and bought yourself maybe a 1967 Camaro convertible, or?
Oh, I bought a golf cart and a hot tub.
Oh,
so
medicinal.
Yeah, that's exactly. And we've never taken a winter vacation ever, and this year we're talking about taking one. So my wife's sister and brother-in-law, they go down to Lakeland, Florida, which is close to Tampa Bay, and they usually go in December, don't come back to the end of April.
Oh,
so
wow.
They want us to come down, and this is the year we're going to go down.
Excellent,
so,
good for you.
And we do have one pet at home. It's a cat, and it was my son's cat when he lived in Calgary, and when he moved back, he said, "Can you look after it for a couple of months till I get my apartment?" So 15 years later, we still have the cat.
Wow, that's an old cat.
Yeah, he's 17 years old now, but he's healthy and still kicking around, and some say they can live to 23, and I'm going, oh no.
So any other plans for the immediate future for you?
Not right yet. We're going to, next summer, we're going to go back east. We haven't been back east for a while to our home province and see family there. All of them wanted us to move back when we retired, but they have their families down there, and it's different when you go back and been away for so long.
Mm-hmm.
But our kids are here and grandkids are here, and there's no way we're going to be jumping the gun that way and leaving them. Because I know when I first joined the force and was stationed in Toronto, we get back once a year to New Brunswick, and the grandkids for my wife's and my parents, they never really got to know their grandparents or aunts and uncles. Mm-hmm. And we don't want to be those absent grandparents, and you could see it when they're getting to know them better now, since they talk to them more often on the internet and Skype and all that good stuff. So,
but that obviously plays into the fact that you wanted Brandon to be that close to your grandchildren.
That's correct. Yeah, wanted to be that close to them, and they take your heart away, and they come up. And
1 minute you want to throttle them, and the next minute it's like, oh my goodness.
Yeah. And some of the things they come up and say, and they had a little gathering for me on Friday night at the Legion, and the two girls come up. My grandson was sick with the flu, so he never made it. But they come up and they look at you and say, Popeye, and then you just, okay, what do you want now? And whatever it is, you give it to them.
Well, of course, that's the beauty. You know what? If I could have skipped children and gone right to grandchildren, wouldn't that have been wonderful? That's our role, is to spoil them.
Yes, yeah.
Well, before we wrap things up for the interview, is there anything you want to pass on or say?
I can't thank Neepawa enough for what they have given us, my family and I. It's the support they've given us over the years, and to my wife, and my kids when we were in Carberry and amalgamation and stuff like that. That's any community that I've been in has really given back, but Neepawa holds a special place in my heart, and always will. And I kind of classify this as home as well.
Awesome.
So thank you everybody for showing me the support over the years.
Well, I guess I could say that at this stage of the game that you won't be missed, and I say that with all due respect because you'll still be here.
Correct.
Excellent. So always a pleasure, Mark, and I know I believe I can speak for the vast majority of Neepawa residents. We really, really value your service and and I'll call it attitude, the way of dealing with people and the way of doing your job that you brought, both as initially a constable and then as the sergeant and then as the acting staff sergeant over those years. You know what? Honestly, I've never heard one negative comment about Mark Morehouse, and I think that is a really, really strong endorsement of the type of job that you did while you served our community. And so on behalf of all residents of Neepawa, thank you very kindly for that service.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Very good. So, a chat with Mark Morehouse, who has left but has come back again. And I guess I could say I hope everyone has the chance of chatting with Mark over the next months or years under the right circumstances.
Yeah.
So on behalf of NEC TV, this is Wayne Jacobsen saying thank you very kindly for joining us today.